booties for black girl nerds.
Marissa, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to Black Girl Nerds. I'm a fan of your work and I absolutely loved Black Cake. Such an incredible series. I binged it in one sitting. That's how good this
My
show
God, you are a champion. Thank you. That makes me so happy.
And I feel like other people, when this gets released to the world, that's going to be the same sentiment for so many other folks that watch this series, especially fans of the book, who I'm sure are really anticipating this. So, the story of Black Cake has these beautifully interwoven stories. What first attracted you to this story, and what led to the decision to adapt it into a TV series?
Well, I received the manuscript 3 years ago and through my agent, like, hey, check this out, feature agent actually. And I read it and immediately finished it and was like, love it, love it. I have to do it. Nobody else can do it. It's not a movie though, it's a TV show. And after I met the amazing author, Charmaine Wilkerson, and just fell in love with her and, also expressed my love for the book and the characters and the worlds and just the timing, that this it was time then, and it still is, and it's always time for premium streaming series to have truly intersectional, diverse main characters, women of color, queer people, Asian people, brown people, and a show that's not about a historically tragic event, that it could be a murder mystery and a family drama. And I'm like, I want my Little Fires Everywhere. I want my Big Little Lies.
Yes.
I want to do it, but deeply rooted in character, that it wasn't just plot, 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 and this thing happens, this, that. I wanted to honor the amazing characters that Charmaine created. And I just thought it was time. And I felt, and I still feel, I was the right person because I just loved them and I loved the book so much. And I could impart so much of my own personal story and experience as an adoptee, as a mixed race woman, as a mom, into these characters, because I was my own version of Kavi growing up in my little cornfield town in Illinois in the 80s and 90s, and being the only person, only Black person there, and trying to find myself and where do I fit and what box do I check, and all of that, all of the things that Covey's trying to figure out. She's coming of age. I've been through it, and I feel like, it's much more universal than just me. And I think there's an access character and storyline for every audience. I felt like it was so universal. And when I pitched, I was like, this isn't like some niche story. This is so broad. We just have a truly intersectional cast of characters as our guides through this amazing globe-trotting story. So I just knew, it was no question. It just spoke to me. I wasn't really looking for a job because I was about to film my first show as showrunner. But I was like, I will shoot myself in the foot if I look in deadline in like a week and somebody else is telling the story, because I wanted to protect Bunny and Lynn and Byron and Benny. I just wanted to really honor them and to bring them to life. And I knew that I would put all of the time and care into the show and put my whole self into it. So it just spoke to me. I knew it. And I'm so glad that I convinced everybody else to let me do it.
I'm so happy for you with this project, because I just know that people are really going to eat this up. And it's so good to see, like you said, an intersectional cast and it's not a niche story. It is a universal story. Anybody could be put into these characters. But it's also good to just see something that's original and bold and not like another reboot or another remake. So that's what I also found very profound and I loved about watching Black Cake. And a lot of it represents, this story, it represents secrets, right? And how secrets can shape our lives. What was the most important aspect from Charmaine Wilkerson's novel that you wanted to translate into this show?
I think with regard to the secrets, there are just reminding the audience, and I might have like 5 answers, which is generally how I answer a question, but uh, the secrets that these characters keep. Why has Benny been estranged from her family for 8 years? Why has she been lying to that? We learned that she had been lying to her parents for a number of reasons for many years. And why is Eleanor lying to her family? Um, and why does this will be a spoiler for this can only be this part could be talked about after episode 5, but Mabel, why did her parents lie to her? Like, really? Why? I'm
Mhm.
adopted. I'm like, I can't imagine my parents lying to me all of a sudden. I'm like, a mother of a 16-year-old, and my parents I find out that I'm adopted. And the secrets are because of shame, and it's just going on layer by layer. It's like, hey, so they might say I'm protecting you, but they're really protecting themselves, and there's an element of shame. And what I took from the book was just one of the many things I took from the book was shame is what keeps people away. Shame is what made this family estranged. And if we could get past the shame and just be honest with each other, we could really save a lot of time and heal a lot of wounds. And if only Eleanor had figured this out, while she was on Earth, instead of recording this message, she could have seen her children together again, instead of needing to die to bring her children back together. So I think the mysteries are just tied into the shame, and the shame goes back generations, as we see with Covey and Lynn and Matilda, and in Lynn's family, coming from China and it's a Jamaica, and it just goes back. And we can either keep lying and keep up tradition, or we can put a stop to it and start being honest, even though it sounds so easy. I think we all know that it's not.
Absolutely. It's a challenging thing. And book to TV adaptations, those can be very challenging depending on how dense the book is. Were there any challenging moments of recrafting this story for the screen, or was it pretty easy to navigate?
Well, I think when it comes to script and structure, before we get into the realities of, oh, how do we make all of this a reality? How do we film this? How do we build these communities? How do we film in all over the world, which is not something that happens every day? Structuring it was a challenge, but I loved it. It was so just the way that we mapped out storylines and the way the stories intersect with each other so much. It's all mapped out. It's all on the page. So that needed to be done. It was very challenging, but it was an amazing challenge. But then execution, this was just an absolute massive challenge. So difficult because it's a period piece. It takes place multiple decades. It's not just like 2 timelines. We are in 1960s Jamaica. You'll see we're in episode 8. We're in another timeline. We're in present day Southern California. We're in 1970s Scotland, 1960s and 70s London, present day Italy. We are all over the world. And that means finding locations, building sets, um, wigs for the different time periods, the costumes. It was incredibly challenging, but I'm just so proud of this the amazing team that made it all happen, because it was very hard. And we could have shot it somewhere else, not Jamaica, and it probably would have been easier, but it wouldn't be special. It wouldn't look that way. It wouldn't have Jamaicans as our on our screen and as our crew, which was so important. And so, but we just there was so much care put into it. We all loved the book so much. We all love the characters. But yeah, it was extremely challenging to tell such a massive story in 8 episodes. And then there's still more story, to tell from the book and then from our brains that we hope to continue to tell.
Yeah, I hope that the series brings people who maybe haven't seen or haven't read the book to go ahead and check out the book after watching the series. Speaking of an amazing team, there are some incredibly strong performances in this ensemble cast. And I hope I'm saying the name of the actors right. Mia Isaac and Chipo Chung. Um, they have striking similarities to each
They
other.
do. It's a gift from above. It is so hard to find these women, and I'm so glad that we did, because not only do they look alike, which is important, they are amazing actors who have to,
Yes.
they have to portray different ages. Their accents will have to change based on, how long they've been in the country and where are they living. Is it affected by England, or, have you been in Southern California for a while? So much has to change. The aging, and then just the depth and what they're actually experiencing. So much going on. They have to be cute and fall in love and dance with their husbands, and they have to experience some major trauma. So they are, Mia, I mean, so many amazing performances. And yes, these two women are incredible.
Did you have a hand in the casting at all, or?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I have a hand in every single thing
Ah,
that goes on the screen. Um, yeah, we did like an international search, and it took a long time, but we found our Covey, we found our Eleanor, and it wasn't easy, but look at them. I mean, if we don't have your Covey, then what do you have? You don't have your
yeah.
show.
That casting was just superb. I was just like, let me look on Google. Are they really related? And make
We have an
sure.
amazing casting agents, and casting directors, who worked tirelessly. I mean, this was a big job with a huge cast, and I'm just grateful.
This is more of a selfish question. As a writer yourself, I'm sure you've experienced the dreaded blinking cursor staring at the screen when you're in your writing process. When you're thinking about what to write, what advice would you give for writers who experience writer's block and lack the motivation to write a story?
I think, and there are a number of ways that I would approach it, and every single writer is going to give you different advice. But for me, what changed for my process experience when I stopped listening to all the voices, what I should write, what's selling, what's interesting, what's this, that, and I just listened to the voice in my head that was always there and wrote the story that I had to tell. And a new story like that, that's what changed my career. And that's what actually got me, basically every job, before I got my own show. And it was a script that I wrote that was the truest script. But now, that I'm a little more established, there's usually there's a story or a subject matter that I'm interested in. I'm like, well, what does it mean? Do I write it as a series? Is this just a character? Is this just a scene? I just listen to the voice, but I do a lot of reading, watching, reading books, reading scripts, and watching as much TV and as many movies as I can, even if it's an old movie I've seen 50 times. And I usually get inspired to finally sit down and write. But sometimes what you're doing to make people feel a little better when you're not writing is you're researching. You're researching, and that's part of writing. So much of my time is the research process, and then when it's just like, okay, it's all there, down, write it, even if it's just a bunch of notes that make no sense. Eventually I'll format them and put it down. But I think it's just listening to yourself and your instinct, and like, what is the story that you're dying to tell or you haven't seen, or who is the character that you're dying to see on screen? Like, just starting even with the character, if you don't know what they're going to go through, and sometimes that can kick off the plot for you. But I think it's really listening to yourself.
What you mentioned research. What kind of research did you put into crafting this story for Black Cake? I mean, obviously it's adapted from original source material from Charmaine's book, but what additional research did you look to when putting together this to translate onto the small screen?
After the book, reading it a few times and asking Charmaine a lot of questions too. It's just researching, the Chinese shopkeepers. I wanted to understand that culture a little bit more, and the Chinese immigration in Jamaica. Um, I wanted to understand that, and I wanted to understand what life was like for them, watching documentaries, reading, as much stuff online that I can find, any books. Same for, Byron's job as an ocean scientist. Like, what does that look like every day? Like, honestly, what is he doing, and what is his day to day? Is he in office? Is he in a lab? Is he out on the sea? And anything I didn't understand. And then a lot of the stuff in England, and Scotland in the 1960s and 70s. I wasn't around, and I've never lived in either place. So what kind of neighborhood would she maybe live in. And a lot of our research is done by our, all departments do their own research, but I learned a lot from the research that our production designer would do. Like, oh, this is where the type of place Covey would probably be staying in Scotland in 1971, and then show me, actual images of the types of places she might live. And then that helps us make a decision about what we want set to look like. And the costumes, what were like Caribbean girls who were living in London in 1970, what were they actually wearing? Our Haley, our costume designer, would show me like, oh, they're wearing a lot of knits at the time, and she'd show me all these cool pictures. So it's an endless research for this kind of project, but it's mostly, reading and looking at photos of real people during the time periods and in the community.
That's awesome. My last question for you is, did working on this series and adapting this from the book help you grow as a writer and a showrunner? And if so, how?
Yeah, this definitely helped me grow. If I didn't, then you need to check me. I don't I would be lying. I don't, every experience, every job, just like every job when I was a staffer on other people's shows, I take something from each project. And this particular project, just, working with such a huge cast in multiple locations, editing, writing, casting, and filming at the same time, it definitely made me stronger. It also made me realize, to be really honest with you, that I need to delegate more. I took on a tremendous amount and working in 2 time zones, and I was not taking care of myself. So it taught me I have to take care of myself next time around. That'll be better for everybody, not just me. And I think as a writer, absolutely, every project, every script, book, whatever, makes you a better writer. Just the act of writing makes you better. And you discover new things. I realized I didn't understand, oh, I'm really good at structure. I didn't know. I just structured it like it was just inherent. And so it made me realize I can do a lot more than I thought I could do. Yeah, and it really did make me realize I need to do not so much at the same time.
I love it. I'm learning from you. I want to be you when I grow up. That's all I gotta say. You're creating some really great work. I loved Women of the Movement, by the way, and I didn't get a chance to talk to you about that, but great series. I cannot wait for people to see this. I know it's going to be the conversations that everybody are going to be having online when it drops. So thank you, Marissa, so much for taking the time to talk to Black Girl Nerds, and I hope to talk to you again in the future.
Thank you. This is so great.
Better shake your booties for Black Girl Nerds. Better shake your booties for Black Girl Nerds.